Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. We're back at it again. This is part 3, and we left off on part 2. We got this just about fitting, except for this, what I call a little peak here, and there's still a little peak up here. Well, you've got the process. It's going to require a lot more, or not a lot more, but a little bit more of wheeling, adding area right here, and wheeling here, adding area, and those will settle down. Now, I'm not going to show you that. We're going to probably take 10-15 minutes and get that done. And then the goal is to fine fit it. We might show a little bit of that. It should be fitting pretty good, but we'll check it really thorough, and we'll get the surface quality perfect. Then what we'll do is we'll engineer this joint. We'll have a nice straight line there. Make this piece, which is basically just a flat piece. And as I promised, I'm going to do the welding. We'll tack weld it right on the steel wire form buck, and we'll MIG weld the top half. We'll TIG weld the bottom half. And the MIG welder is like a $400 Lincoln welder I bought probably 15 years ago, 18 years ago. And the bottom half welding will be done with a TIG welder that I bought probably about 3 or 4 years ago. That was a $300 Chinese inverted TIG welder. That works really superb. So when we come back, this should be fitting really good, and we'll go for the surface quality a little bit and then engineering that joint. Alright, in the effort to get these 2 peaks down, I've done about 3 cycles of wheeling for about 5 minutes, putting it back on the wire form, clamping it up, and finding out where it's tight. Where it's tight on the wires, I circle it, and that's where I concentrate my effort. When you concentrate the effort, you don't want to do that spot entirely right there. You have to go around on either side of it. That's just where the wire is, and that's where it's impacting. So we feel with the feeler gauge, and we find out where those spots are, where it's nice and tight, and then we mark them. And I wasn't going to show this part, but I know there'd be comments saying, "Oh, most important part you didn't show me." So I'm showing this. A couple more cycles should have it. This is almost down now. This needs to come a little bit more. And then after we get that done, then we'll do the trimming. Alright, I finally got it just about fitting. It took a little bit longer than I expected. I don't normally make a panel like this where you wheel the whole thing, which I just wanted to show that it's a possibility. On aluminum, it's a different story. On aluminum, aluminum on an English wheel will move a lot faster. In a planishing hammer, power hammer, same difference. Aluminum will gain its correct area value with a lot less work than you will with steel. So after doing this panel with all wheeling, and you can see it made quite a turn there. That's all stretched. There was no edge shrinking of any type, no malleting. After doing this, I came to the conclusion that maybe that's why I don't do them that way. That I much prefer to use a mallet. Well, in this case here, I would have put a bunch of shrinks along this back side here, or even on the front side, doesn't matter, or both of them, and I would have stretched this out a little bit. So I would have gained the desired area value change and arrived at the correct area value at a much faster rate. I would have had to do the cleanup process on the shrinks and the cleanup process on the malleting. Well, that goes really fast. The shrinks are a little slower. And generally, if you want to clean those all up so they totally disappear and look like this chrome plate look, you have to over shrink them a little bit. And I think if you looked at my other videos, you see how I use the gathering tool and then my shrinking facilitator to really make an effective shrink without having to have a Pullmax with thumbnail dies and stuff, which all work really good, but most people are not going to have the room in their shop, or they don't want to spend the money for it. So I would recommend that if you're going to make this piece in steel, that definitely you would shrink. Even in aluminum you could shrink too, but it can be done all with stretching. But just so you can understand a little bit better what happens here when we stretch this out, and I'm not done yet. I haven't got the surface quality on here I want. I went up one wheel to move the metal a little faster, so I'm on my number 3 wheel, and I just want to give you a visual of what happens. See, from here down, there's a little arc to it, and this is where all the action takes place, right in this radius here. And this is the strongest double radius, right in the center of that, right there. And then it's a little weaker right down here. There's still a strong curve this way, but a weaker curve this way. This has a strong curve this way and a strong curve that way. So probably 70% of the effort is up in here and 30% of the effort down there. And what exactly do you do? And I'm going to illustrate with this tape what actually happens. So I'm going to put this tape on, and this is going to be a little bit of an exaggerated view so that it's more descriptive that way. So this is going to come down like this, and this will come like this down to here. And what I'm trying to illustrate there is this section here has the greatest amount of growth that has to happen, and this is much more than needed to happen. I'm just using an exaggeration here to make it more graphic. And it's basically like two triangles, like your two fingers like this. You're starting from this position and you're opening it up, and it has to go all the way to the edge of the panel. So this is like the ground zero or whatever, where the most action has to happen, and then less and less as you get away from that high crown area. So that's what you have to impart into the panel in order to get that strong double curvature. You've got to put a lot of work right in here and less work as you come out over to here. So next I'm going to do some surface quality work, which will also cause a little bit more area value and a better fitting. Right now it's down on the wires everywhere, except for maybe up here. I didn't have enough length in the panel to grab onto that wire, unfortunately. I'm about a ½ an inch away. I can steal the material from this way, from the bottom, but then I'd be short on the bottom. So, actually maybe not. I might be able to steal it up there. And we still got a few little minor tight spots on the wires, but the surface flow is looking really good. So let's do a little bit more area value, and then we're going to do surface quality. The next thing after we get the surface quality would be putting some blue tape lines on here, which will be the trim lines. I always use that 1/8 inch vinyl blue tape, which we do sell in our store, www.proshaper.com. Alright, I arrived finally at the surface value that I was looking for. Everything's laying down pretty good. It's hard to tell up here because I don't have the wire right there. Still a little, maybe a little bit more I might have to put up here. But what I want to do now is, I don't want to make the video too long. So I'm going to tick it off here and then create my trim line, which there's a wire about right here, and I want to be able to use that wire to clamp with. And then I'm going to have my welding line it'll be to the left of that wire. Now if Mark can come around and maybe show inside here, so you can see now that it's hitting the wires really nice. There's a few minor tight spots still, and I'm going to just leave enough on this edge here for doing a wide edge. So I'm going to mark it on the inside, and then I'll transfer those lines to the outside. And here, I want to make pretty much a straight line here. This bottom lip, I've got to cut this off because I'm going to put a flange on there. So I'm going to get it all marked up. I'll show you after I get it marked up, and then how we put the blue tape on. I use the red magic marker. I just ran it along the wires, and that's right where the wire is. Now this is the bottom, and it's going to have a flange on there, and I think, I got to check, but I think the running board is going to be coming up to here anyway, so it's going to attach there. So we just need enough to put a flange on right here, probably a 3/4 inch flange. This is where the wide edge will be. That will require a 3/8 extra material to make the wide edge. And this is the wide edge, I'm sorry. This is the weld line here, and we're going to try to keep as much of that material as possible when we lay that out. So we'll use the blue vinyl tape and we'll transfer these points, and you can just eyeball them sometimes. You can put a little prick punch mark there. It'll prick punch through if you want, if you don't trust this system. But you take 2 pens and you line them up. You can pretty much touch them together. You can use a divider to do this or whatever. And we're going to idealize, this is the trim line. We're going to idealize that with the blue tape, try to get it as straight as possible. And then we're going to trim it. Put one more in here. Alright, so there's spots. We'll do the same thing pretty much on the other ones. We're just going to put a little line here. And now we'll take our blue tape and this is approximately where the wire is, so I'm going to put the blue tape right where that wire is. And we have a little bit of error factor here. It's not that super significant. So I'm going to look at that line, and that line is actually a pretty nice straight line. So down here I only have a ½ an inch, but most of that I think is going to be cut off anyways. So I got about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go for 3/4 of an inch. All right, so now we're laying out this actual cut line. We're going to run it parallel to the first line at about 3/4 of an inch. I'm just guesstimating here. One thing you want to do is try to really train your eye to make nice straight lines and parallel lines, and comes in handy. It's like Luke, trust the force. You got to trust your own eyeball once in a while. Now we can grind this line and tune it a little bit when we'll have a sheared straight edge, bring it up against it, and we'll see that we might be off a little bit, and we'll grind it as needed. We're going to have extra material over here so we can keep moving it in. That's called sinking the line in nice. So that's all going to be cut off there. Let me mark that so you can see it. So that's going to get cut off here. That'll be a trim. And then we have to do the same marking process here that we did there. Alright, so that's our bottom line. We did the same process we did over here, and we'll put a 3/4 inch flange on that. 3/4 flange gives you a nice strength to it. So you can see we had a lot of extra here. That gets all cut off. And then we have one more. Actually, let's cut those two. Mark, if you can go get the shear, we'll cut those. Alright, Mark got me the bore shear, and I can cut pretty accurately right along that line. That's another great advantage of the vinyl tape. Once you start using the vinyl tape, you'll get addicted to it, because you don't have to look for some microscopic scratch line or a magic marker line that gets wiped out. This, you got to make sure it burnishes down good, and if you're going to err, you try to err on this side of the line so you grind it to the tape, but you can get pretty close. Let's see if I can get my light a little better here. Now you want your curl going down. By cutting it this way, the curl will go down. If I cut it this way, the curl will go up. And this is a guard that protects your fingers, but what happens is it jams there. This way here, you have the potential of running over it, so you got to kind of pull the curl out of your way. A curl down is much preferable than curl up. You get a beautiful cut. Now, I used to do this with hand shearing. I don't use the hand shears hardly at all anymore. Once you buy these, they make a hand shear almost obsolete. Now the corded shears work just as nice, but then you're tethered to the cord all the time. That's the advantage of the cordless, and the batteries last a long time. So now we'll cut this one off. Now, if you marked it from this side and you wanted to cut from this side, which is something you might do with a shear, with a hand shear, if you do it this way, what happens is this will bind and you won't be able to do it. See how the battery's in the way? So if you do it from this side, you have to tip the machine upside down, and you can follow along really well with the blades. So we got two cut. Now we got to do where the wired edge is going to be. We got to mark that off. Now this cut will be where the weld is, and that's going to be ground a little bit, so we're going to fit that in. So that's significant, but not super significant. This is a flange, and we can be a little bit off on that. I'm right on the line. It's not bad, but if I was off a little bit, it's not significant. This is really significant. You have to have that 3/8. So if you're going to err on this side, on this line when we cut it, we want to make sure that we have more than we need, and we can always grind it down. So this one, instead of trying to transfer it over, let's mark it from the inside, and we'll cut it with the shear upside down like I just mentioned. So that marker was on the outside of the wire when I marked it. So the metal is on here. I'm cutting or marking on this side here. So I'm going to put this tape right on the line. Now say we had a bad wire. One of my students made this wire form, and say there was a little kink there or something. It will show up when I lay down this line. So this is where you make corrections. If you see an error in the flow of the line, you can make these little small corrections that will be visually nicer when we see the wheel opening all done. So here we are, and that looks pretty good. There's a little squiggle right here. I could pull that up and straighten that out, but it's not that significant. So okay. So now I put my second, that's the inside of the line. Now I'm going to do the cut line, and I'm actually going to do this a little longer because I'll grind it after I weld it. I mean after I bend it. I'm going to tip this up. Instead of 3/8, I'm going to go about 1/2 inch, and this is all guesstimating too. Then I'll get a little 3/8 gauge, and I'll just grind it down. And with a 50 grit disc, 3-inch disc, you can grind this right down pretty quickly. So that's a little insurance factor. Once you cut the metal, it's there's no going back. So you'd have to weld it on, and that'd be such a pain to have to weld it on. It's a possibility, but you don't want to do that. So always leave yourself a little cheat factor, and then you can straighten it out. Now this one, let's see, would probably cut this way. Yeah, doesn't look like it's going to interfere, so we'll try. But as I mentioned, if there was going to be an interference problem, we'll cut with it upside down like that. Now the other day at the class, one of my metal shaping classes, coach building classes, the other pair of cordless shears that I have stopped. They wouldn't cut anything, and I noticed down at the back of the blade there was a little chip. Now these blades are carbide and they have 4 rotations on them. So I think that was the first time I had rotated that blade, and it cut again just like brand new. So I think I've rotated these Bosch ones once, but I bought 2 new sets of inserts for this, and I think that the machine will probably die before I'll probably never use those inserts. So here we are, we're all cut now. We'll leave that, take that one off. And now we have a nice trimmed panel. We still have to do a little surface quality work on this. So we're going to have to take this tape off. You can't run over this tape. All the tape's got to come off. We'll do a little surface quality work, and then that will also help the area value settle in a little bit better. But right now, you can see the panel is homing in pretty nicely. So I went up 1 wheel and I brought it the whole way. I probably can go down 1 wheel and finish this area here with that other wheel. And then that's number 2 wheel. And the number 3 wheel, I'll use this, and that'll be on low pressure. And I just got to go through, you know, a whole bunch more, and that'll smooth it out. It's already beautiful. I mean, if you prime this, it'd be fine. So I was hoping that we could get this other panel made tonight, but we're running a little late again. So I think that's all we're going to do for tonight. I hope you learned a little bit. And please comment every time you think that there's something you want to comment about. And please give us the likes, share the videos on other forums if you're a car club member or whatever. We're trying to build the channel, and I appreciate all you do. Hopefully maybe someday I'll see you at one of the classes. I get a lot of feedback saying they can't wait to come to get the class once the COVID stuff is over. But we've been having the classes all along, but people can't travel. All right, thanks for watching. It's Ray Chalene from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts.